Hello. It's
You say goodbye.
showtime. Do you know what?
No,
I
I don't know
I
what.
was looking at our podcast and I thought maybe you were sitting too far back,
Okay.
but you lost weight. normally,
Yeah.
I'm, normally I'm sitting next to you and I'm thinking, wow, I look really small compared to Andy. And right now it's like you've kind of reached my
I still feel like I feel like another 3 or 4 kilos will thin this out a little bit more.
yeah.
I'll see that
Or
baby face I used to have.
or we'll just put the camera up high. Anyway, today we are going to discuss between us arrogance versus confidence.
Yes, we are.
And we're going to do that on.
A wonderful chaos. A wonderful chaos. What are you going to do it on, Bambos? And we like it that way.
It's a wonderful chaos.
And we like it that way.
Bam. So, you picked this subject, Mr. Shalef.
I did.
And
I did. I've even got the subject for next Monday because I saw there's dovetailing of this with several subjects. But I thought we'd take this one first.
Yeah. So, why did you take this one?
Why do you think I took it, Bambos?
Well, you kind of told me, so it's a cheat question. But our viewers don't know that. It's been coming up, right?
It comes up. It comes up, I'd say, every 3 to 6 months. And it's an interesting thing because you'll notice when an individual is starting to be challenged with their own confidence, then when another person comes in their field that's confident, it'll trigger them. And instead of them reflecting on where it is that they're feeling insecure, they project on to the other individual the fact that it's arrogance. So they turn the insecurity of their own lack of confidence into a judgment that this other individual is then arrogant.
Wow, you can unpack this in so many ways, right?
You can, yeah. And I've noticed that it's an interesting thing because if you think about it, when we go on some self-realization journey,
yeah,
then what we're really doing is we're calling everything that we think to know into question. So we lose confidence in some ways.
Yeah, because somehow you need to rediscover your ground.
Yeah. What you could say what's really true. And what happens, what I've found, is that you go through this sort of the flexibility, like the delusion of my reality, and then the construction of a reality, and then the delusion of a reality, and then the construction of reality. There's a bit of an ebb and a flow. So in some ways, I believe that we need to create a structure in our lives in order to create some semblance of order.
Yeah.
And then at times, the structures we create are then our limitation, either in interaction with another or in creating a business, wherever that shows up. Is it, by the way, just as we speak, is this going to esoteric and heady, or is this concrete enough that it's understandable?
I'd like you to bring it to a concrete example, actually.
Yeah, because I noticed when we talk sometimes, if it's not concrete, then it sounds too. Okay, so let me slow down then.
Confidence and arrogance.
Confidence and arrogance.
Well, I loved what you
Oh,
said.
oh, sorry. Okay.
I loved what you said earlier before the podcast that we'll tend to judge someone as being arrogant or put a label there when we feel insecure and we don't feel confident ourselves. And there's the other side also. Um, we might become arrogant ourselves to cover up that we're not confident.
Yeah, the insecurity.
Yeah.
That's the other side of it, of
Mm.
course. So I was thinking when I had my job as the marketing director,
Mm.
I was very insecure for the majority of the years that I had that role. And as you know, I didn't have marketing experience and I was a marketing director.
Yeah. Tell me about the story about the telephone bill.
Yeah, the telephone bill, right? So the telephone bill, my telephone bill was over €1,000 a month.
It was the work phone, by the way.
The work phone, yeah.
And you'll get that story in here, guys.
Yes. You can buy it anywhere that anywhere the books are sold.
Yeah.
The thing was, yeah, in that case, the CEO called me in and said, Andy, we got to do something about your phone bill. It's over $1,000 a month. And then I said to him, and I feel like the shame come up as I hear myself say it, if it goes under 1,000, then call me back in here because then I'm not doing my job.
I just want to high five you, actually. To some degree, there's a truth there, but you weren't grounded when you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There was a truth there because my calls were going to all the people in the company, and I was the one who was communicating with everyone, unlike the other people at the headquarters. So there was a truth in it, but it didn't acknowledge that what he was doing, which was trying to heighten consciousness around cost.
Yeah.
As well he should have, right? But I guess the thing was, at that point I was insecure
Because you were still feeling like a fraud.
because I was feeling like a fraud. And
So you had to step out of yourself to play the role of whatever that might look like, of a confident marketing businessman.
exactly. And I was very identified in being a confident, strong businessman.
So identified you were blind to it.
Well, identification would mean it was something that I wanted myself to be seen and perceived as, and I felt like that was who I am. So I played the part. It was my mask. And it wasn't only insecurity, but there was a lot of insecurity there as well, of course.
Hmm.
So as I matured in the role, I began to see a little bit through my own insecurity, of course. Because what you'll notice if you're insecure, if you're insecure and you're playing like you're more secure than you are, if you're around other people who really know their shit, you'll notice all of a sudden you get insecure.
Yeah.
Because that's where you feel most exposed.
Mm. If you go back to the shows when we first started, the first year, I would say, the first seasons,
Yeah.
I was very insecure.
Yeah, we talked about it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And especially when we would have guests and it would go on an intellectual level and it was moving away from uh, vulnerability or whatever you want to call it, I would try to take control and bring it back to vulnerability as opposed to fully owning where I am and being at peace with what was there.
Yeah.
And that was a hard lesson for me to learn, of course.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think when I remembered when my mentor Case, he came to I was living in Vienna at that time. He came to Vienna. He did a training, and in that training, it was the first time I experienced what personal responsibility would look like for what I didn't know. And what I mean to say by that is, before then, I was trying to act like I could know. I could tell each country how to run their business better than they could themselves.
Yeah.
There was this inherent arrogance in thinking that I, from some headquarters in Vienna,
Knew better.
could tell someone in America how they might run their business better. And so what shifted for me, which also came with humility, is that I can't tell you how to do it, but what I can do is at least create an environment where we support one another. And that was where it was interesting, because you kind of, it's a paradox in the humility of finally being able to acknowledge that I couldn't run the business better than they could. I got more confident.
Because you didn't have to prove yourself anymore.
Uh,
You owned fully where you were.
Yeah, and I also saw, I would call it a fundamental principle of life in a way. I understood it finally, that each person's destiny is for them to create, and I can help and support them, but they need to take responsibility for their own lives. And that was a bit of the humility that allowed me to get more confident. Yeah.
I I think that's why I feel good in being vulnerable in my life,
Okay.
because when I share the thing that I don't find so easy to share, it kind of relieves me from the performing, and then I relax into myself. But I
Yeah.
never saw that it would make me confident, but it just made me more, wow, one less thing to occupy my mind.
Can you give me a concrete example of this now?
Hmm. Nothing comes to
Oh,
mind.
okay.
So let me see if I just start the sentence and see what comes up.
Mm-hmm.
What's the sentence then?
For what
Oh,
is,
just
I even forgot what the question I asked you was right now.
oh, an example of where vulnerability helps me to ground as opposed to trying to perform. Oh, I know.
Uh-huh.
In a relationship, I just couldn't get it up,
Okay.
and instead of feeling bad and oh shit, what am I gonna do? I shared. Apparently, he doesn't want to come out and play,
I love
but I
that.
can still we can still have some fun.
Yeah.
And because I didn't make it a big deal, as soon as I shared it, she connected with me, and actually it got up.
Yeah.
So I can't believe I shared this.
Well, I mean, in a way, it's again, that goes back to the projection reclamation work that's highlighted in the book, The Wounded Healer. Shamelessly plugging. I love it. The Wounded Healer, available in bookstores.
Finish what you want to say.
Okay. The thing is that in accepting the thing that we're most shameful of and not having a problem with it, all of a sudden we're just at peace with being again. So it would be normal to say, find an erection again, because you're not scared that you don't have an erection. If you don't want to have an erection, then you continually think and worry and have stress and anxiety.
Stress increases, disconnection from her and from yourself.
Shame comes in, thoughts come
Trying
in.
to figure out how to navigate it. You like, don't make love.
Instead, you're like, oh, apparently this is the way it is. And then there's a release that comes with that, loving it and embracing it for what it is, not writing a story about it. And then all of a sudden it just materializes again, because you're not moving away from
it doesn't mean it's going to materialize. It just means that
exactly.
Yeah.
And nicely put, because if you did it in order for it to materialize, then it probably wouldn't materialize, because you're still trying to get somewhere. Yeah, nicely stated.
Yeah. I just want to freeze this moment now, guys. You'll see me doing this a lot, right?
Yes, 2 books.
Now, Andy doesn't do it, but I love these books. I've read them 12, 13, this one 13 times, this one 12 times. And this one's been a game changer for me. So when I pick them up, I'm not just doing it to tease Andy. It's really, I freaking endorse these books.
Nice.
Words fail me when it comes to giving reviews. And yes, Andy's my guru, if people want to call it that.
Yeah. He likes, you appreciate me too much.
I appreciate you too much.
Yeah.
Andy, Bulelang brings an amazing point.
He did. I saw it.
Bring it on.
I wanted to bring it on earlier because it was an amazing point. Can arrogance exist in a person without the existence of lack of confidence in them? Fuck yeah, Bulelang. Are you kidding me? Yes. You see it every day. Person who has lacking in confidence, but totally arrogant.
But it's what we said earlier, right?
It's exactly what we said earlier.
Yeah.
So because a person is lacking in confidence, they will judge another individual, and then that is arrogant. It's arrogant to think that the person is doing something incorrect or not right, especially coming from a place where you say, I'm judging them because they make me insecure, because I'm insecure. So they make me insecure, so they must be bad. And that it's so subtle that I see that it often falls under the radar, because the people with which it often comes up in are highly sensitive people that are connecting to female sensibility. I won't call females, but female sensibility. There's a softness that says, oh, you can't state it that strongly. And what I've seen is that softness is then used through judgment. And that happens in my own life probably every 3 to 4 months, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. There was a chapter, as you know very well, Bambos.
Yes.
And The Wounded Healer, and it's one of my
Fuck
favorite.
you and your judgment.
No, Bambos.
No?
It's fuck you and your fucking judgment. Chapter, I don't know what, in The Wounded Healer. That was one of the scarier chapters for me to write, because what I noticed was that I can still have compassion for this individual. I can actually love them even more. But especially at that moment, I was very vulnerable, and I actually reclaimed my own strength and said, listen, I could be there for you. But this is when I was raw, doing my 60 sessions day after day in America. It was intense, driving 5,000 miles and alone. It was a lot of work and energy. So
I mean, you peed on yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
On that trip. That's how intense it was.
Yeah, I got on the California incline, a very well-known. Ronnie, I drove Ronnie crazy because we were in California over Christmas.
Yeah.
And we went down this up or down this California incline many times. And she said, Andy, I don't need to hear that you peed yourself on this hill anymore. Yeah, it was. But the thing, I don't even know where I was.
Fuck you and your fucking judgment.
Is that at that moment, I needed to reclaim the fact that I'm giving away all of my time emotionally for other, holding space. And I was like, you know what? Not now. So, so at that time, the person said, are you open to feedback? And what I heard in the statement was, I have judgment towards you, and I want to state it to you.
So she appears as confidence, but actually there was arrogance.
It was arrogance. She didn't state, I would love to share what happened with me so you could understand a little bit, so we could get closer.
Showing herself.
So she didn't show herself to me in any way. She assumed that she was right. And from that assumption, she then began to tell me how I should live and what I should do and what I should do differently. And I just have little space for that in my life at the moment. You can tell me how you feel and what my behavior has done, and I'll hold all the space for that. But if you come from a place of pain and fear and anxiety, which is unexamined, and then use that as the basis to come back, it's just a waste of my time, because now I basically am now having to listen to what you don't realize, which is all of this unprocessed pain that you haven't taken responsibility for, and yet I'm now supposed to take responsibility for that. And I just see that happen a lot. Yeah.
So actually, there's this sweet spot where you're not confident or arrogant, but you're just fully present with what's arising in you and fully owning it. And in that way, I mean, if you don't own it, you'll become the arrogant. Is that true? Is that like a formula?
Isn't that
Will
funny?
you become a form?
Yeah, in a way, if you believe that you know better, but you don't state outright, then you're arrogant again, because it'll show up in your interaction, but you're not owning it.
You're not, yeah.
So you're not taking responsibility for your state, and then you're couching it.
I love how confident you get when you raise your voice.
Yeah. You know what it is? There's like it's in a way it feels like I'm overtaken when I talk like that.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. You got a comment the other day that Andy loves. At some point, Andy gets very excited and starts talking with his hands.
If he was a dog, it would be his tail. I have something to say.
Yeah.
Bulalang, you look good.
You look good, Bolalang. I love the picture, Bolalang. I saw it. He's had that picture for a while.
No,
Yeah. That picture's been there for a while.
this is the one I know.
I know, but he changed the picture as well on the other one. We like the picture, the other picture better, Bolalang, just to.
You look more confident.
Yes. And thank you. Bolalang also says, I agree with you on those 2 books, Bambos. Thank you, Bolalang. I am deeply grateful. Bolalang gave me an incredible gift, as you know, is he went through my book and he took out piece by piece the phrases or the statements that he really appreciated, and then he posted them for about 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And
It
it
was
just
longer.
Yeah, it was longer. But
I mean, I told you need to write a 3rd book, but now it's going to be a 4th book with all the quotes.
Yeah.
And Bulalang has it ready for you.
Thank you, Bolalang. I'm deeply grateful for that.
Confidence versus arrogance.
You know, and it was an interesting thing because there was another. When I go in to work in a project, there's always like this moment where you go into a new environment, people don't know you from Jack. And at some point, in order for them to be confident and comfortable with you, they have to feel like you've done something in your past so they can at least relax.
Yeah.
It's like if I came to you and you were a photographer and you said, "Oh yeah, I got a camera last week." Like no one is going to say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be really surrender to his pictures."
Yeah.
So the point is like, where do you like allow people to say, "Okay, this is what I've done and what I've achieved," and not do it in a way which says, "Oh, I'm so great that I'm the person that you need to have as photographer." And what I've seen in my own coaching practice is I find it really humorous that when somebody asks me, like, why would I hire you? They're like, do you know my stock answer?
Yeah.
What is it?
I can't think of any reason.
No. Well, that would be it as well. I would agree. But you're looking back at the course that we took. I actually would maybe do it a little bit different. When somebody asks me why I would hire you, it's always interesting. It's like I always would say, and it's true. I don't say this as a tactic. It's just honest. Is that I've fucked so many things up in my life. I know really well what doesn't work. Like I know really, really well what doesn't work.
Okay, let's freeze that.
Okay.
Now, me and Andy had a talk on Sunday, and you kind of told me it's all about the intention. So someone else could mimic what he just said, but it will have a completely different landing in the other person.
Yeah. You, of course. Yeah, true. So I would say I'm owning my truth, but I'm doing it with such confidence that actually it doesn't diminish me.
Yeah.
And it is authentic because I honestly feel, because I see that whenever anyone uses the past in order to tell you what they can do for you in the future, it's a promise you can't make. You make it because everyone wants you to make it, but you don't know what's going to happen. Things change so quickly. And once you've mastered something, so many other people have also mastered it. Like the window of opportunity isn't that great. So I would rather be with somebody who can adapt with me through a process as opposed to try to get me to go through some scheme that they created years ago. You know, funnels are what you'll see today most of the time, but they're sold on the internet. So yeah, that's and what I, in my own case with the people I work with, I see that the kind of people I want to work with, that message resonates with. There's a lot of people that message does not resonate with, but I also have to say those aren't usually the people that I want to be working with. So I attract the clients that are like, oh, exactly. We do realize that we need people that are smart on their feet. We don't need people who think they know better than us.
Nice.
And and that's how I've built my own relationships in time, and I think there's a trust that I feel has come out of that in how I operate, and people see a consistency. So, no.
I think for me, when it would come for photography and I do a project that I haven't done,
Uh-huh.
especially when it's repeat clients, they'll come to me like, "Hey, do you do this?" And I'm like, "Not really, but I know enough about lighting to make it work. And of course, if it doesn't work, you you like I'll take full responsibility."
Yeah.
And they trust me on that point.
Yeah. And that's it. Confidence and humility.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that point of the humility is something. I was on a call, and and
When
before we came here, I was on a coaching call, and you see my notes I wrote down. That was from my coaching call, and the person I was on with said, "Andy, it's interesting. Like, there's a difference between humility and then false humility.
say that again.
So humility, like a knowingness that there's always something that I don't know. Like, that's just humility to say, I'm open because there's always going to be something I'm not seeing. There's a humility in that statement.
So holding whatever you think you know very lightly
Yeah.
and knowing that there's a big piece of the pie that you,
May not see.
yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of humility in navigating life with I'm taking my experience seriously and holding it lightly. Because if I don't hold it lightly, I'm not going to see where it may be different than what I think it is.
Hmm.
And the false humility comes in when somebody, as we went to earlier, knows a lot but pretends or acts like they don't because they're insecure to show how much they know. Which then,
So
yeah,
they're trying to sell themselves.
they might, but they may just be insecure. What I've noticed in that type of person is that they will often judge because, like, a father or a mother was behaving in a certain way, which they don't want to be recognized in themselves.
Mm.
They don't want to be like their dad, who was always that way. Like the story that I've told and you've told about anger.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be like my dad. He was always angry. I never knew how to learn how to deal with anger. And then I would get raging angry because I'd suppress my anger all the time. And in this case, the humility is, I know a lot of things. I'm really aware of how the world works, but I'm going to pretend like I don't because I don't want to put myself in a vulnerable position. But since I'm not saying anything, I'm going to judge everyone quietly, gets to this quiet arrogance, and then act like I'm superior when I've actually never revealed myself.
Yeah.
And that would be the false humility. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. We have some comments coming in first. I would love to call out to JC Barnett, who is in Kentucky right now. We love you, JC. And Bambos is wearing the cap. Kentucky whiskey. Is that Kentucky bourbon? Sorry, don't get this confused. The Kentucky bourbon. Thank you, JC.
Is that where Kentucky Fried Chicken comes from?
Yeah,
Oh,
Kentucky.
really?
Colonel Sanders. Yeah.
Neil Vanderland, my man.
Neil Vonderland writes to us.
Can you discuss the origin of both more? To me, arrogance stems from little experience with few failures, confidence from lots of experience with both fails and wins, and being open to comment and tips. Humility. The last part,
Let's break it down into
yeah.
pieces. Neil writes, can you discuss the origin of both more? I don't know what that means.
Um, oh, what comes from me is if you take an individual and you see where they came from,
Mm-hmm.
their upbringing,
Yeah.
their parents, and how their parents treated them.
Yeah.
Like, if I think of myself growing up, I was so insecure. In fact, shut down,
Yeah.
and I wasn't feeling loved,
Mm-hmm.
and and I didn't have a reference as to what, like I didn't even have the right ways to communicate what I wanted because I didn't know what my options were.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up uh, very insecure, and in my drug addiction, the drugs would numb me, but they would bring out a part of me that would be a little bit macho,
Yeah.
and I would get into fights, and I'd be okay with that because when you're drugged up, you kind of it gives you like a kind of confidence, like I even sit up a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you might say that I could come across dangerous.
Yeah. Sure.
And then there's the upbringing of a child with great parents. They told that child, you're amazing, we
Yeah.
love you,
You're the best.
you're the best. And I don't know, like I don't know because I don't have that experience, but I'm going to assume
Mm-hmm.
that it can go two ways. The child is confident,
Mm-hmm.
or it becomes arrogant that I'm the one.
Yeah, it can go any way, of course, right? Yeah, I don't think that's an easy connection to make, but yeah, I see. Yeah, the upbringing, sometimes, the humor is like really kids that were really raised by loving parents will often have their own quirks, which is kind of humorous. But we're kind of digressing a little bit off, I think, from the question, or are we not? Because I'm having a hard time following the red thread now.
Well, can you discuss the origin? I went straight to the roots
Okay, the origin.
of arrogance and confidence.
Oh well, it's funny. This is really nice to create a distinction here, and the distinction I'd like to create is a behavior against the perception of a behavior. So the behavior is confidence. One is confident in themselves. Now, confidence doesn't mean they're qualified. Confidence doesn't mean that they even study the thing. They could be confident for no apparent reason, but they're confident. Now, arrogance is the judgment of that confidence. So if you say, how does one become confident without being arrogant? You don't decide that. You decide if you're confident or not. And then others will either judge you as confident or arrogant. But you don't get to decide how they judge you.
And you also get to choose how you respond or not to it. If you
Yes.
can be at peace with it.
Yeah. So, and one of the funny things in a personal development trajectory of an individual is that a lot of people, especially when they haven't had a modeled behavior in their lives, like a parent who is confident, who they can model and say, oh yeah, that's what it looks or feels like. So now they go into the world and they're developing. And then, like I have I had a call just before we came on, and the individual kept saying, I've got imposter syndrome. I've got imposter syndrome. So they're head of a big organization,
Yeah.
right? And really well known, established. And this individual says, I have imposter syndrome because I see that although I know these things, I don't know them. Like so they weren't standing in the confidence of not knowing.
They were not okay with not knowing.
They were not okay with not knowing. And then instead of them saying, hey, I don't know, and I'll figure it out, and hey, I'll find the right people. So staying in this, this mindset, which kind of lets you connect and bring more solutions into your system. She was going to this other mindset, was shutting down those opportunities, because in saying I don't know, and I'm an imposter, what happens to your brain?
Shuts down.
Your brain just shuts down. So that was a funny,
What I know from leaders, actually I don't know it from leaders, but what what I assume is it's someone that just owns where they are. They
Uh-huh.
show the humanity,
Yeah.
and they use that to bring people together and give them towards the vision, right?
Yeah. I mean, I see. I mean, in a, this could be its own discussion around leadership because it's such a nuanced discussion. But in general, a leader that I find to be really good is one that can acknowledge that they don't know and they don't need to know, and therefore they get the best minds together, so they know how to channel knowledge and make decisions better.
Mm.
Of course, in setting a vision, which is always, depending on the corporation, but visioning is often an important aspect of it. Yeah. Edith offer. For a long time, I was insecure with low self-confidence. People who seemed confident triggered me. I guess I was jealous, and I called it arrogance. With years of working on raising my self confidence, I could discern more between arrogance and confidence. Confidence comes with humility and appreciation. Arrogance usually comes from void and judgment, as you mentioned.
Iris is amazing.
Isn't she just?
Like she she
You know,
never see
Edith has watched every show.
yeah, she never ceases to surprise me though. In her also in how she puts her sentences together to
Yeah.
bring a point across. Very clear.
Yeah, Edith. That would be, I've often said that the people that trigger us most are the people that we have the most to learn from. So, what is the quality that they're exhibiting that I can't exhibit in myself because I'm uncomfortable with that? The greatest one was Trump. When I'd say, what is it that Trump does that you're not able to do in your life? Where if you were able to do that, you would probably be more successful, and that would just that created a great backlash
You
at
have to be
times.
good at tweets and not care.
Well, there's a degree to which if you see how Trump would operate, he would be so convinced of whatever he was saying that other people would be convinced by his conviction.
Yeah.
So to say that that is a bad quality would be pushing that quality away. Because if you want to get people to support you in something in your life, then you're going to have to believe it enough that when you state it, they believe it.
So was Trump confident or arrogant?
Well, Trump was confident. Because if you ask him, who no one is, for the most part, no one's going to say they're arrogant. They'll always feel themselves to be confident. It's the world that would judge them as arrogant or confident.
But what I'm asking you, as a source, his inner world,
Yeah.
would you say that he's insecure?
Yeah, I would have said that he was
Yeah.
insecure, of course. Yeah. Yeah, I would say that there's a degree to which he's continually trying to prove himself. But that doesn't speak to what he believes of himself. What he believes of himself is confident, that he's confident. And in believing that, he's able to convince others of that confidence and therefore create what he creates, which is a following.
Yeah.
It's a charisma there. So if you want to be a great leader, then you also have to be aware that charisma is an important aspect of it. And if you alienate those qualities, then you don't get the opportunity to inhabit or to bring those into your way of being in the world. So that's why I'd like to look at the world in wonder as opposed to judgment, because in wonder, I get to learn a lot. In judgment, my brain shuts down and I don't go to this sort of this way of seeing the world that helps me take it all in and grow from it.
Andy,
Yeah.
Talk to me about wonder.
Wonder.
No, seriously, it's something that you use a lot.
Okay.
And I think you operate from that space. Or at least if I can define it, in wonder there's no labeling. It's just open. I'm looking at the world with an open lens, through an open lens,
Yeah.
and I'm not assuming anything.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say we don't assume, because we do assume, but we're somewhat conscious of what we're making assumptions about. So the wonder comes in when I look out at the world, and it's interesting. I would almost put it. I'd stop what I'm saying right now. There's a difference of looking out at the world and letting the world come inside of you. When I'm looking out of the world, I'm trying to make sense of what I see with a very critical eye and determined thinking. So that's the state that I saw myself in when I was anxious and fearful, wanting to prove myself, especially when I was in the marketing director position.
Yeah.
What I saw myself shift towards was the humility of not knowing, and I want to counter that with something else, trusting my experience. Because not knowing isn't enough. Not knowing would be like you're in the world without any rudder.
Yeah.
So you need a rudder. So the rudder for me, what I treat is my experience. So I take my experience seriously, knowing that, again, it's limited, but I need to take something seriously.
As an anchor.
As an anchor, yeah.
And then you would say, I hold it lightly because in the lightness, I can have a new
experience that will inform the experience that I believe, or that might call it my functioning modus operandi.
Beautiful.
So the wonder for me comes in this, as I'm no longer looking out determined, but I'm looking more in, what am I feeling? What am I sensing? What is it telling me? I'm getting triggered by this. That's fascinating. What is this telling me about myself? What do I see happening? And that's the wondrous world that I spend a good portion of my life in.
Nice.
And I notice that if I'm not in that state, then the shutdown comes. Anxiety or fear or more determined mindedness. I need to get this done by this time so I can relax. That feeling. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I just love the word wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful word, and I love that you asked, because I think when you use words and you don't explain at least what the sensation is, it's hard for another person to understand what you mean, and they can sound flaky. Well, that's what I. Let me see. Bolalong has written some other stuff to us, so it might be nice to check in with him again.
Oh, new profile picture. A person who says they don't know when they don't know are the same with Bambos admitting that the boy is not up to play. They are comfortable in their skin. That's confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're confident enough to say you don't know, that is a incredible confidence. I love your smile.
Yeah. Makes me happy. It is at the corporate environment. You can also see lots of managers get promoted because of confidence, even more over than talent.
Yes. This is painful. We did this last show, right? What was our last show that we talked about this on? We just discussed this.
I don't remember.
Extrovert, introvert.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's the sad thing is that when people act as if they know, then other people feel that they can trust them more, although they're probably less trustworthy.
I had this image right now. So let's say at a certain age, you've made love enough times to know how to make love. And the funny thing is, with every new partner, sorry, you're married, there will be an arrogance to know I'm a great lover.
Yeah.
And know what a woman wants, because every single physical body has a different way of touch and like the spots that you have to, so in general I'm like a 5-year-old and I'm like discovering the world all over again, like reset. There's no, oh, I'm gonna touch you here because 50 other women loved it here.
Oh yeah. And then when they don't react, blame them for it.
Yeah.
Oh,
What's
that
wrong
would-
with you?
Oh, yeah. That
Ah,
would be the arrogance in that case that we were
yeah.
discussing before.
So so what I'm actually saying here is that there's a confidence in the not knowing, in fully
Yeah.
owning that I don't know, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah. That would be the height of confidence, right? I mean, that's why, again, why I'll say you hire me because I've made so many mistakes. I know it doesn't work.
Mm.
There's a degree of confidence in that humility. Yeah.
You're making me aware because I've had a few people that approached me recently to be their coach.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing now, based on what you've said, I've gone through enough shit in my life that I will be a great coach.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if you're not trying to fix or heal them, right?
Yeah.
Danger with coaching is that
and I
everyone
wouldn't
wants to heal everybody with their own shit, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Bulelang. Trump is like our ex-president here in South Africa, Zuma.
Zuma.
They act so confident doing the wrong thing and people sympathize with them.
South Africa.
South Africa is literally on fire now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the interesting thing. What happens is that someone is confident, and then that confidence, people begin to, and it's charismatic as well. They begin to believe so much that they can't see it any other way. It's a belief system. So even when everything proves to be contrary to the reality that this person never knew what they were doing, they'd never be able to see that because you're predisposed to see the things that validate your reality, validate what you want to see, which is the height of why I have very little hope for society, because I don't see people discerning about what's really going on. I see them wanting to believe and therefore not really like being present. Yeah. And that's what I've unfortunately seen a lot of.
I think the show with Jack Ori was also a beautiful example of confidence, like fully owning that this is not a show that we want to do.
Yeah.
And yet we're open to explore.
Yeah.
Without judgment, without any disposition that we know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah,
example that you just gave.
Because even where I would ask a question, where in the past you're like, oh fuck, I don't want to ask this because I'm going to come across as dumb. It's actually really dumb not to ask it.
Yeah. And I feel like on this show for us here, if there's one thing I want to hold true to is that I want to allow ourselves the opportunity to not know, to be insecure, and to let it unfold. And I know if we have our own insecurities and others will have those insecurities, we don't live in a bubble. We're not special. And I hope that the risks that we take are in some cases seen and appreciated, but I know that a lot of times we'll be judged, and we are judged, of course. I've seen it happen already.
Check our Facebook inbox.
Yeah, the people who come to a place and confuse our desire to be open and explore as even being ignorant. I've had a lot of people want to sell me coaching services because the openness here and allowing it to be open is seen as they're still confused there. As opposed to, isn't it beautiful that even when one starts to learn and grow, that they're open to exploring things in a new way? Yeah. And yeah, and in that way, I do want to, in my own life, be an example of what I would like to see more of in the world, which is just sharing how it is for you, letting other people see you and not see you. Because people will not see you, and you have to be okay with that.
And be okay with that. Yeah.
That doesn't feel good.
That was one of the greatest lessons that you gave me, by the way. Yeah.
What was that?
Oh, in an old relationship, I wanted to be seen, and you sat with me and you said, Bambos, from today and the rest of your life, you will never be seen, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And that was like biggest gift you gave me. Like I sat with him, like, yeah.
Yeah. Can you imagine how many codependent relationships there are when one says you don't see me, and then all of a sudden holds the other person accountable for their own loneliness? Like, ugh, one can choose to be out of that relationship, but let's agree that if you need the other person to make you feel whole, that's a
Big
it's a
responsibility.
big responsibility for the other, especially. Yeah. Mm.
And think about it, this show is live.
And
Well, a lot of people that do podcasts will record it.
yeah,
They're gonna like I met someone actually, she's doing a podcast and it's a spiritual one, but she might spend half a day doing the recording over and over again. And then it needs to be edited, of course.
yeah, yeah. We really put ourselves out there in this style. I mean, think about it. We now have recorded, how many shows do we have? We have
234, Mr. Shalev.
So think about that. 234 hours worth of material. And in 234 hours of
It's
material.
more because we go over.
Yeah, true. So in all that material, you know that there's things that if we look back on, we'd say, you know what, I probably would have stated that differently.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not because, just because, in an hour show, you don't say everything like idealized or whatever how you'd want to say it. Yeah. And I'm happy that we allow that for the very reason you mentioned, because if we need to curate it so that we could be comfortable putting it out,
so people see us in a certain way,
then
we're fucked.
We're fucked.
Then we need coaching.
Yeah. Yeah, then we need some coaching. Bowl Along will then be the one. And thank you, because it's funny, because like Bowl Along says, I love it live. It is real for me. And I do feel that way. Like I do see that the people that come and join us for the hour, they come here for the very reason that they know, like we don't know what the hell it's going to happen.
We don't even know what we're talking about.
Yeah. Halfway through a show, I'm like, what's the title of this show that we're on?
What were we saying?
Yeah.
We have under 8 minutes, Mr. Shalev.
Yeah. And Edith is really sweet as well. Kudos to you guys. Yes, this is a sweet hour of the day. Yeah. It's funny because that makes me like want to cry. I don't know if you understand, Edith, how much that means to hear that. Because in some ways, when I'm going to go through my day, I'm like, oh, I got to do the show. And it's not always that I want to show up here at 5 every single day.
Sometimes I feel like shit and I don't want to be here.
And in a way, there's Edith and Bolang, who I said that don't expect to feel seen. And the fact that I don't, and that I do feel so seen by Edith and Bolang, it's just such a touching feeling. I can't give it words. I believe, and this is a story, of course, but I believe they honestly see us and how we're showing up, what we're endeavoring, whatever, even if it's just being present, like that, and that just makes the hour. It makes it really special for me. Yeah, like family. Yeah.
Thank you, Urla.
Thanks, Paula. Yeah.
I had to think of the most difficult podcast we ever had together. The 1,000 Coffees.
Yeah. It's viewed a lot, by the way, the 1,000 Coffees.
Of course it was. Like it's still difficult to watch for me, even though I'm okay with it being there and being viewed. It's really difficult for me to rewatch it because I haven't found peace with the arrogance that I showed on that podcast by putting up a font and but it was a great lesson.
Yeah. Yeah, and that would be in my terminology when an identity of you or I or anyone isn't able to see through itself,
Yeah,
then it has to defend itself to survive.
yeah. And in that podcast, guys, this motherfucker defending himself.
And what was the hardest on my end is that you noticed that I wasn't teaching you. I was literally being a stubborn asshole. So I didn't go to in that instance to the arrogant space, which
Uh, oh, I experienced you as being a loving wall, actually.
no, I know that it felt that way for me, but I could have done something totally different that would have become arrogant. It could have been me elevating myself above you, teacher, student, as opposed to a friend say, no, I'm going to meet you as an equal and treat you harshly.
I can feel that right now.
Really? Can you? Yeah. Well, and that's what's hard. People wouldn't see that unless, and we talk about it a lot. And I think we also talk about it because there is some anxiety and uncomfort in that, because we do know people won't understand our intention. They won't understand what we've dedicated onto the show. Like I you know, I when I tell someone, if you or I ask a question from fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and there's an arrogance where we think we know something about the other, but we're going to couch it in a question, then that's just unacceptable.
Mm.
Like, we're going to own it if we feel judgment before we ask the question, because that wouldn't be authentic. That would be like,
Yeah.
let me ask you a question where I think I already know the answer, but I'm going to pretend like I'm asking you a question. Like, that is not what I'm interested in.
And you can feel that there's an undercurrent there.
Yeah. Yeah. And when the identity kicks in, like if I were to say to you, hey, Bambos, what's going on? Or I'm noticing this or something, just to point at it, any resistance only validates that there was something actually there.
Yeah.
The non-resistance is like, oh, what do you see? And there has to be trust. Let's get that clear. If there's no trusting relationship, there's something more fundamentally going on. But assuming trust, then basically that's the opportunity to really grow.
Mm.
At least in my life. And then we talk about slowly but surely, another identity falls away, another identity falls away. And then we just feel what it feels like to be present again.
Mm.
Because I see once we defend any idea of ourselves, we're not present. We're fighting to keep an identity, right?
Yeah.
And that's just that's a hard place to be. So I am whatever you say I am, and that's okay. And I'm also not that, and that's also okay. That's the polarities. They often call that the polarity work. Yeah. 58 minutes. We did it, Bambos. If we're Barry Manilow, what would I sing?
Who's that?
I love this
No,
song.
I know him, but I don't. No song comes to mind.
Looks like we made it. That's what I sing every time I end something that was challenging. This wasn't so challenging.
Mm.
But I mean, the summary of the thing that was core for me in this show, which I will often find as I speak out things, they also become clearer to me.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really resonated with me was when I noticed that I distinguished between, one is confident. How it's perceived is either as confidence and somehow admiration for that confidence, or as arrogance. It can be perceived a lot of other ways. It could be perceived as insecurity as well, of course. But in that perception, that's where a judgment is placed upon confidence. Right?
So if you see an individual that's behaving in a certain way,
Yeah.
and you're not comfortable with it, and you feel very clean in yourself, like sometimes I'll see a certain individual
Okay.
that's I can see that there's a I'll use the word pretense just for context.
Okay.
There's a pretense of confidence, but I know that it's not a grounded confidence.
So what I would say is you see they're insecure, and instead of allowing themselves to acknowledge they're insecure, they're acting more confident than they actually are.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, just that. There's no problem with that, by the way. But
no, but what is it? Was there anything to add to that, or?
Oh, I'm not always sure how to navigate that, but if I hear myself speak, there's nothing to navigate.
Well, I mean, there are a few things that come up for me. Like, I would be anxious to recommend that person to somebody else.
Yeah.
Because I gain confidence in an individual if I also see there's some degree of humility. So if someone's insecure, then I'm also thinking, oh shit, when things go bad, I can't trust that they're going to be forthcoming about what's going to go bad. Or they're going to try to create a narrative which is not necessarily in line with what's also happening in a situation. So yeah, I do pause with people that are confident, appear confident, let's put that, or act confident when actually it's coming from insecurity. Yeah. There are consequences for me, yeah. You?
Oh yeah, I spend less time with them.
Yeah, less time, yeah. And maybe don't recommend them to somebody else, right?
Oh, in my brain, this individual was not in a work context, so.
Oh yeah. Nice. Well, we are at the end of our hour, Bambos. We've done 1 hour and 1 minute.
1 hour and 1 minute.
You know what I thought next week's Monday show was going to be? We haven't decided on it yet, and we can decide together. But it was another show which had a similar edge to it. Abundance versus scarcity. We've never done a show with abundance versus ka-ching. Abundance versus scarcity next Monday. That's the topic we're going to take on.
And tomorrow's show, I'm going to announce it. Episode 235, live at 5 Central European Time. I'm appearing confident, aren't I?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. My love-hate relationship with Facebook with Frank Diaz. It will be the second time that we have this individual on our show. And after some messy moments on Facebook, Frank Diaz decided it was time to leave. A few months later, he returned. We discuss his journey. And if you're someone that's even considering deleting your Facebook account, stay tuned.
See you tomorrow on A Wonderful Chaos.